Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this short session. I hope you all had a good day. I'm Jay Walemba. I'm the CEO JCVS. I'm the CEO. I'm the CEO JCVS, and today we are blessed to have Festus, who is a HR assistant at JCVS. He will be taking us through the interview process, the interview preparation process. So join me in welcoming Festus to start us off this evening. Anyone with a question, you can have them in the chat section. I'll be reading them through after the session is over, so that we can discuss. The Festus can respond to the questions that will have been asked. So Festus, karibu sana.
Thank you, CEO. Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Festus Mutua, HR assistant, JCVS, and I hope you have all had a good day. And tonight we're going to handle a topic which is most critical to every one of us, to every professional, whereby we shall talk about interview preparation. So welcome all. Let's feel free for this discussion. So I want to conduct it in 3 categories, whereby I will start by outlining some of the things you need to do or to know before going for an interview. We'll then proceed to another section whereby we'll handle on how to present ourselves for the interview. Then finally, we shall look at what to do after the interview. Then after that, I will highlight some of the commonly asked interview questions. And I'm sure by the end of the session, we'll have learned a lot. So welcome all. And I know it's everyone's desire, because we are all professionals looking for an opportunity for greener pastures. And it's everyone's desire to ace their next interview, which they have been invited for. And interviews has been one of the most feared sections for candidates. And you find that when someone has been invited for an interview, they feel tense. And right before I joined this meeting, I have just read a quote which stated that fear is a killer. What do I want to say? It's the fear that is inside someone when they are preparing to go for an interview, which I can say probably makes them to be the least qualified candidate. So one of the things you need to know before going for an interview, confidence is very key. Confidence is crucial. Confidence is very important. So let's start with our first section, whereby we shall see on what to do or know before going for an interview. So as we all know, before you are called for an interview, you must have applied for a job opening. That is an opportunity. For example, you spotted an advert on LinkedIn, Facebook, a friend referred you, or probably you just found it from a WhatsApp group, and then you applied, and then you are called next for an interview. An interview, I say, mostly is just like a sort of conversation with your potential employer to see whether you are fit for the position which you have applied for. And one of the things we need to understand is that when you are being called for an interview, prepare as if you're going to have a conversation with just an old friend of yours. Because interviews aren't for us to be tested, but for us to be verified that we are fit for the position. And I've conducted several interviews, and I've seen people tense. I've seen people being courageous. I've seen people sweating. I've seen people mumbling, not knowing what to say. And I can all say This probably is due to the fact that they have fear inside them, or probably they are not prepared adequately. So I'm hopeful that this session will equip you with the tools that will enable you ace your next interview. On our part on what to do before going for an interview, I'd like to highlight some things, whereby number one, research about the position you are applying for. If, for example, it's an HR position, accounts clerk position, an engineering officer position, probably it's an inventory manager or inventory officer position, you need to have the know-how of what is required of you for this position. I've met candidates whereby, for example, you find someone has applied for an HR position, and when you ask them what is the
Kindly unmute yourself, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm back. I was outlining some of the things to check on when researching about the position you're applying for. And I was giving an example, or citing an example whereby I've met candidates whereby someone has applied for an HR position. You ask them a simple question like, do you know the Employment Act? And they aren't aware of if they search a document. So as a professional, one thing I would say is that you need to do intensive research of the role and the profession which you have studied or you are studying or you are furthering. It's important when you know the know-how of what is required of you, because when you go for an interview, you'll be aware of anything concerning that field. The other thing is about knowing the documents, the systems used in the performance of that role, or the documents and systems used in your area of specialization, and know how they are used. For example, for the engineers, you should know how to write a progress report. It sounds something simple, but it's something crucial. That's something which you can be asked in an interview. And maybe it degrades the marks or the points. For someone taking HR, no documents that guide an HR professional. The Employment Act, the CPA, all those, the policies, the gender mainstreaming policy, all those. For the accounts, at least know what is the credit note, what is the debit note. I'm just highlighting the simple things because these simple things has caught many of us unaware. You just be asked of something which you see to be very simple, but you find it to be a tough for you. So as a professional, endeavor to do intensive research in your area of specialization, and more so if you're preparing for an interview for the position you have applied for, make sure you have researched, you have adequate know-how. Someone told me information is power. So when you have adequate information, you won't be afraid of going for that interview. The other thing is you should research for the industry and the company. That is my point number 2 on what to do or to know before the interview. Research on the industry and the company. For example, when you are going to the manufacturing industry, know what happens in the manufacturing industry. For the company you have applied for, know more about, research more about the company's general focus. What does this company focus on? What achievements have they made as an organization? What is their key goal? What is their vision? Their vision will enable you know what is mainly probably expected of you. So at least research about the industry and the company. This is part of the toolkit. This is tool number 2.
Umbao. Kumaanisha nini?
Sorry? Hello. Yes, thank you. We shall proceed
Just
to
go ahead for someone.
All right. We shall proceed to the point number 3 on what to do or know before going for the interview. I'll say prepare for common interview questions. Prepare for common interview questions. This is where you will have to think about which questions are you most likely to encounter, given the position you are applying for. Then prepare so that you won't have verbal for them during the interview, so that when you ask certain question like, tell us more about yourself, you won't be caught unaware. So I'll say number 3, prepare for common interview questions. There are questions which are just general. For any position you apply, most likely the probability is 8/10. You'll be told to tell the panel more about yourself. So prepare for such questions. For that, we'll handle it in the last section, whereby I'll highlight some of the commonly asked interview questions, and we'll go about and see how to answer those questions. Then number 4 of what to do, or to know before the interview, I say practice, 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 and I repeat practice. When I talk about practicing, I mean this: get a friend of yours, a colleague at work, a family member, and assume you are in an interview setup, and do a practice with the questions you have drafted, the most likely questions you expect to encounter during the interview. Practice with them. Tell the person to be the interviewer, you be the interviewee, and practice on how you'll respond when you go before the panel. The last thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to what to do or know before the interview is prepare to groom accordingly. I'll talk about dress code. So let me say dress code, whereby get yourself a neat attire for the interview. Best to impress, I say, neatly, professionally, as a profession. So dress code is one of the key important things as interviewers will look for. How well you are dressed matters for the interview. So how you present yourself in your grooming will also matter for that interview. So prepare. Let your dressing code not be just like any other day. Don't just get up and pick anything. Prepare for the interview. Get a nice cloth, groom nicely for that interview. Then just to mention, lastly, prepare copies of your resume and other relevant certificates. These are some of the things you should carry along with you for the interview. So that is the first bit of what to do or know before the interview. Then we shall proceed to the other part, whereby I'll talk of how to present yourself at the interview. So here we are going to talk about now when you are at the interview setup, what is expected of you. Number 1, I'll say score a success in your first 3 to 5 minutes. What do I mean? When you have gone for an interview, obviously it will be in a room, in an office, whereby the interview shall be conducted. And one of the things we have talked about during the preparation before the interview is your dress code. Number 1, dress neatly. Ensure you are neat as you walk inside that office. Wear a cologne that is not so strong, a cologne or a perfume. Ensure you wear a cologne or a perfume that is not so strong. Then the other thing is how you come in. Come in with energy and enthusiasm. The moment you have come in for an interview in an office, how you walk inside that office also determines how the interviewers will probably judge you. No, I want to be real, because we are human beings. You'll be judged. It's the same case, the same scenario as going for a social event. How you enter that door, it matters. We are human beings, so ensure you've come in with energy and enthusiasm. And after walking in, I can suggest you do this. Start with greetings and with a positive comment thereafter. For example, I just do an example, a little bit of illustration. I've just walked in an interview. I just start by good morning or good afternoon, it depends on the time. I am Festus Mutua. I've been looking forward to this meeting. Thank you for bringing me on board. That sets an atmosphere for the interview, because maybe you have walked in for an interview at around 11 a.m. and this panel has been there probably since 8. And maybe they have met, not maybe, but obviously they have met different candidates. So you have to set an atmosphere for your interview. And one of the things you should do, walk inside, greet the people, introduce yourself, and then that will have shown that you have some sort of confidence. And the introduction bit itself might give you a better chance and a better position to be the selected suitable candidate for this position. So one of the things you should consider is how you present yourself once you have entered inside the room. And from my experience in the interviews I've been conducting, I usually consider most likely candidates who are lively. Someone who has just walked in confidently. Confidence shows you know what you've come to do and you know what is expected of you. So how well confident you are. As I said earlier, fear is a killer. So don't let fear kill you. We are all human beings. Feel free, walk inside, say hi, greetings, introduce yourself, then sit down and wait. Now, since you set the atmosphere, the panel now will take from there and greet you, introduce themselves, and then you get started. The other thing you should consider while at the interview is our sitting posture and non-verbal communication. I want to cite an example whereby I've seen candidates in an interview, someone walks inside and they just sit facing at the door, not facing the panel. That is a sign of fear, and it shows lack of confidence. It shows low self-esteem. And there is no employer who will ever want someone who is not confident, someone who doesn't know what is expected of them, someone who can't compose themselves, because probably your role will require you at sometimes to present the company for meetings. How will you conduct yourself? So how the non-verbal communication, your sitting posture, your behavior, maybe some people sit down and start fidgeting, whereby someone starts tapping on the board, on the table. It communicates a lot about you. It shows that you are under fear, you're tensed. So the confidence is accompanied by how you walk inside, how you introduce yourself, and now the non-verbal communication, how you sit, your posture. So it's important as candidates to check on our posture and the non-verbal communication. Avoid rubbing your face, catching your ears, rubbing your eyes. Those are unnecessary for the interview. Just be calm, get inside there, you can just breathe in and out silently while seated there. The other thing is, when you are inside the room for an interview, before I forget, I've just illustrated an example of how I would introduce myself for an interview. Thank you, Lucy, for muting your microphone. Get some noise disturbing us. So I just earlier illustrated how I would present myself when I've entered inside an office or a room for an interview, whereby I just said, I'll start by greetings, good morning or good afternoon, depending on the time. Then say, I'm Festus Mutua. I've been looking forward to this meeting. Thank you for bringing me on board. Number one, note that I have introduced myself by my full names. I'll not just enter into a room and say, hello, I'm FK Mutua. That's my other name. Those are acronyms of my name. No. Introducing yourself with your full names at least shows that you're professional. And the other thing is about the second statement. I've just said I've been looking forward to this meeting. It creates an atmosphere. I've come for a meeting, because we have had that assumption whereby an interview, people tense because they think it's an acid test platform. But in fact, I usually tell most of my clients, let's say my team members who have been coaching for interviews, go to that interview as if you're going for a board meeting. Go to that interview as if you are part of that company to discuss about this position. That creates a better atmosphere for you. That's why I'm not saying I've been looking forward to this interview. I've been looking forward to this meeting. In fact, it's a meeting, only in an interview setup. Then thank you for bringing me on board. It shows appreciation, and it means you are ready for the conversation. Then from there, my second point on how to present yourself for an interview: make your selling points clear and ensure you close on a positive note. When I talk about your selling points, I'm majorly meaning your strengths and achievements. These should be your tools, number one tools in an interview. Your strengths as a person and your achievements in your previous work experiences. Those will be very two crucial tools you should use to verify yourself fit for this position. So that's on how to present yourself at an interview. Then lastly, what to do after an interview. What should you do after an interview? What should you do? That has been one of the burning questions. People reach out asking, I've been in for this interview last week. What should I do? One of the things I recommend, what I only recommend, is send a thank you note. Just for example, when you meet someone for an appointment, what do you do next? You send a thank you note. So this thank you note, I recommend you do it in either email or a normal text. It depends on the channel or the medium which was used to reach out to you for an interview. Some companies will invite you for an interview through a mail. In other companies, you'll be given a direct call. So whichever channel they used, use that channel to send a thank you note. So now, after handling these three key important categories, which I wanted to highlight in preparation for an interview, let us look on. Yes.
Kindly, don't you mind maybe to repeat on about what to do after the interview? Kindly, you are a bit disappearing, so I couldn't get the information right.
All right, thank you. So I've just said this. After an interview, it is important to send a thank you note. I assume an interview, it's like an appointment, whereby if someone has invited you for an appointment, what do you do after that? You send a thank you note, probably through a mail or a phone call or a text, depending on how you communicated to request for that opportunity for an appointment. So the same case for an interview, to be professional and be among the 1%, the few 1%, respond back by sending a thank you note. And I've said for some companies, you are invited for an interview through a mail. In other companies, you'll be given a direct phone call. So it's up to you to choose which channel to use to send a thank you note, referring to the channel the company used to invite you for the interview. If they used a mail, consider using an email to send a thank you note. If they called you, mostly you can call or send a text. It shows gratitude, appreciation, and this will attract the attention of the interviewers, the attention of the recruitment team, to see what kind of person are you. It seems you're a grateful person, and they probably will consider you. So those are some of the things you should do after an interview, because most of us go for an interview and then after that, after going for an interview, majority of us don't reach back to thank the recruitment team for the opportunity they gave you to discuss with them your ability, your potential for this position. So those are some of the things you should do before, during the interview, and after the interview. So this is a toolkit for preparation for the interview. Then before we go to the question and answer section, we'll be taking questions by the end of the session. I'd like to highlight some of the commonly asked interview questions. There are some questions which you will not miss. The probability is 7/10. You will not miss these questions for any interview you have been invited for. And number one question, which is most probably very challenging, is the question on tell us more about yourself. That has been one of the questions which make people tremble. That question, I was on to my first question on tell us more about yourself. That has been one of the most trickiest questions, the question which most people fear. And this is very simple. Telling me more about yourself. Assume you've met an old friend and you are reintroducing yourself to this old friend. Probably you have 2 years gap when you lastly met. And maybe in the past 2 years, by the time you met lastly, you was a business person for a small shop, small kiosk. And now when you are meeting right now, you are a mega business person. You own a company with 50 to 100 employees. So telling us more about yourself or telling me more about yourself, it's a matter of just expressing yourself. What have you been doing all this time? So I recommend you measure on 2 areas. Measure on your academics, just highlight on your most recent one. I'm a master's in business administration graduate, specialized in project management. Then from there, they have your CV. They already know you did your bachelor's, you did maybe a diploma or certificate. They know the high school you studied because they have your documents with them. Proceed to your work experience. Highlight your just recent one. The recent one, just highlight the recent one, which you have been deployed at. Just highlight and say, I've been working at this company, for this position, performing these duties. Then from there, highlight your achievements, your most recent, mostly the top 5 achievements you've achieved, highlight them. Take around just 3 to 5 minutes. Don't take too long, because the moment you become too wordy, you'll become irrelevant. Just be brief, but not too brief. Why am I saying not too brief? I've been in conditions whereby, in situations whereby you have invited someone for an interview and they are just giving you a one-word response. A one-word response, it's a turn off. It's a turn off to the panel because they have invited you for a discussion. So it's up to you. Make sure, be composed, be creative, don't be too wordy. That will be important for you. That's why I've said prepare before the interview. And I've just highlighted on some of the things to consider. Sharing about when you are asked about to tell the panel more about yourself. Consider, I just repeat, consider your latest academic achievement. Maybe you recently graduated with your master's.
Karibuni. Wewe unatafuta kazi. Na wewe unatu-invite kwa nini?
Thank you, Andrew, for muting your microphone. So I was highlighting on some of the things to measure on when you are told to tell the panel more about yourself. So your most recent achieved academic qualification, then your previous, the most recent previous work of experience, and then lastly, highlight on some of the achievements you have made in line with your profession, in line with your career. The other thing is what interests you. The other question is mostly asked is what interests you about this position? So for you to answer this question, I want to believe before you are called for an interview, a JD was shared with you. A JD is a job description was shared with you. So it's up to you, ensure you have maximized the use of that job description. Ensure you have studied so well, you know what is expected of you or required of you. If the job description has not been shared with you, consider going online and research and consulting people who have been in the same field as to which you have applied for. You'll get a know-how of what is expected of you. This will enable you answer the question of what interests you about this position, whereby after knowing what is expected of you, you'll get to think about what really, because if you find yourself, you have been invited, you have applied for a position of a human resource officer, let's say. So majorly you'll be dealing with recruitment, employee relations, all those. So exactly when you ask what about interests you about this position, one of the answers you can give is you are people oriented. There's no way you'll conduct recruitment. There's no way you will facilitate or oversee employee relations when you are not people oriented. So you should have that heart for the people. So that will enable you, understanding job description will enable you answer the question of what interests you about this position. The other mostly asked question is what skills do you possess that are relevant to this position? And this I'll also refer you to the job description. For example, you have applied for the HR position, HR officer position. In your previous, you have probably a 2 years experience. You have been in other companies, or maybe you're a fresh graduate. There are general skills which you should possess as an HR personnel, as an HR professional. And these are things which come in line with your profession. So you should think about as an HR professional, what is expected of me? Which skills should I possess? And this will enable you to answer what skills do you possess that are relevant to this position. For example, someone has leadership skills that will enable you to lead a team members of your department, team members of your sales team, depending on the position. So you should Hello, I'm back. So on the question of what skills you possess which are relevant for the position you've applied for, it's important to do intensive research. That's why I stated first, start with researching. Here you are selling yourself, you are branding yourself. So do intensive research. And as a professional, I always recommend this. In your practicing, ensure you have developed these skills. Don't say you are a leader, yet you yourself have not been practicing leadership. So for that question, in line with your profession, you should be able to highlight some of the skills you possess. Leadership is general, time management, detail-oriented. Those are skills which an HR possesses. For the other professions, there are different skills. For the medical personnel, they have different skills. The other mostly asked question is on what are your strengths or what are your weaknesses? If you asked about what are your strengths, most probably if you ask the question of what skills do you possess that are relevant to this position, you should use your answer to respond to the strengths you possess, because your skills should be your strengths. And when you ask about the weaknesses, when you ask about the question on the weaknesses you possess, one of the key things you should understand is share your weakness and then outline on how you are working on your weakness. And weakness necessarily should not be a weakness as it sounds, should be a strength in a way. You ask someone about what is your weakness, and they tell you, I am an overthinker. That's one of their weaknesses. That's their major weakness. Being an overthinker is not a weakness in a way. It can produce good results, because overthinkers are people who are intensive in research. But again, it can be a weakness because being overthinker, it will give you to take a lot of time before you make a decision. So if you say, for example, my skill is being an overthinker, I find myself taking too long before I make a decision. But I'm working on my overthinking weakness, where I have tried to teach myself to improve in my decision-making skills. And I've been reading books on decision-making skills. This has enabled me to compress my duration in which I take before making a decision. So this enables you to brand yourself that in a way, your weakness is your strength. So those are some of the questions which are commonly asked in an interview. And for my presentation, I would like to end there. But before I end, I'll just share a recap in a short while of what I've just shared about. Then we'll go to the question answer section, whereby our today's discussion, I had divided it into 3 categories, 3 sections, whereby first we talked about what to do or to know before the interview. And number 1, we have said research about the position you're applying for, know the general roles for that position, know the documents, the systems used in the performance, have a general knowledge about the position you're applying for. Secondly, research on the industry and the company, research on the companies, on the industry and the company, research on the company's general focus, know what it takes to the ropes of that organization for the position you're applying for, know what is expected of you. Then thirdly, we have said you prepare for common interview questions. So preparing for common interview questions, Google, research on and think about the questions you're mostly likely to encounter given the position you're applying for. Then prepare so that you won't have to fumble for them during the actual interview. Then number 4, we have said practice. For the questions you have researched about and you have prepared yourself, get a friend of yours and practice for these questions. Assume you are in an interview setup and then do a practical. 5th, we have said observe your dress code and ensure you have dressed neatly in line with the interview. Be formal, be neat, be professional. Lastly, remember to prepare copies of your resume and other academic certificates relevant for that position to carry them along with you for that interview. Then on the other section on how to present yourself for the interview, you have just said, ensure you have scored a success in your first 3 to 5 minutes. How? With how you walk inside that room, how you start the conversation. I've just said, after walking inside the room, start with greetings, introduce yourself, thank the panel for inviting you for that interview. Then secondly, we have said, make sure your selling points are clear as you present yourself in the interview. Have a know-how of what you're sharing about. Don't contradict yourself. Make sure you are aware of what you're talking about. Then lastly, on what to do after the interview, I've just said, send a thank you note, either through an email, a call, or a text, depending on the medium which was used to reach out to you to invite you for the interview. Then lastly, but not the least, I don't want to forget saying this. I've seen candidates presenting themselves for an interview. Then if you ask someone about, like for example, you ask someone, tell us more about yourself, they start referring to their CVs right inside the interview. When you are sharing about yourself, you are sharing about whom you are. So you should be knowing yourself. So the moment you've walked inside that room with your documents, kindly put them aside, face the panel, maintain direct eye contact while answering the questions they probably ask you, and just feel in a discussion setup. Don't feel so uncomfortable, just feel comfortable, maintain direct eye contact, and that will be good for you to go. So thank you, Jay. Thank you everyone for listening to me. I would like to end my presentation there and probably ask for questions.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Festus. That was a good one. I will read the questions as you help me respond, and then I can help where need be. The first question is from Christine, who is asking, what do you say when they ask if you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, thank you for that question. It's a good question. When they ask you if you have any question for the panel, I recommend you can just ask the panel, what do you expect from me? At least it shows concern that you have some concern of being productive, knowing what the company expects from you. That's a general question which you can ask if any other, or if you feel any other thing has been handled or discussed. So I recommend let that be one of your to ask questions.
The second question, I think, also just to add on what you asked the panel, I think this question, the panel just wants you to know if you are selfish or you are into the company. So I've seen candidates ask about. I've seen candidates talk about ask about if they have opportunities to, maybe if the companies has opportunities for growth, those who want to go to school. I think it's something that we discourage at this point of an interview. You can only ask that question when you're signing the contract, or when you've been confirmed that you're being given the job. But in an interview panel, when you asked about, tell us about any questions for the panel, always make sure that you are directing all your questions to show concern about the company. Ask them in terms of development, whether the company is planning to expand, and things related to the job. Don't ask about individual questions. Then another question is, kindly, those who are entering the session, kindly mute yourselves. Another question, how should I answer the question why I resigned when I can't say the environment was toxic?
It's a very good question. One thing is never badmouth your previous employer, despite of maybe how toxic the environment you felt it was. So I recommend you think of a genuine social response. Maybe you can say you opted to go and start a business if you feel it's something so personal, and maybe you have been running the business and now it's okay, and you have created an opportunity for someone else, and you feel now you need to get back in line with your profession with your career. So you need to practice for what you've been studying for. So I feel you can just respond it that way.
Yeah.
Hello.
Godfrey,
Hello,
how
I
can
have,
we help?
I have
Yes,
a question.
kindly share your questions in the chat section.
Okay.
On why you resigned. Most of the time we get, we try to, candidates try to lie about this. And there are instances whereby an organization, you can talk about, the instances we can talk about end of contract, the instances that we talk about, the best way to respond to this question will be, you just have, you make sure that whatever you're talking about, it's something that your referee can advise on. Kindly, those who are joining the room, kindly mute yourself. Simon, kindly mute yourself. So you can talk about having received an offer, then where you agreed on a specific salary, let's say 100,000. But after you got the job, you you resigned from the previous organization to join this other organization. The offer was changed. I've seen that happen in several organizations, whereby you agree on an offer during the interview, you go resign. When you want to join the company, you find that they're paying even half of what you agreed. So that might be also a reason for one to make a decision to resign. So there's a question on salary expectations. Festus, can you respond to that?
Yes, thank you. On salary expectation, I recommend this. Let's say previously you have been practicing, and there is, first of all, I'll say do a research, know what is being offered in the market. Then personally, refer to what you've been earning and what you expect. If, for example, you have been earning 40,000 for the position you have applied for, after doing some research, consulting people who have been in that field, referring to the internet as well, you found that the position, at least someone is paid 50,000. So it's up to you to decide from the 40% I've been, from the 40,000 I've been earning, I have been looking forward into a salary increment, maybe to earn 55,000 and above. So I recommend this. While quoting your expectation, don't give a range. Just say, just use your minimum expectation as your least amount to quote. Maybe you can just say, if you have been earning 40, you need to earn 50 and above, just say 50,000 and above. And then put a disclaimer and open clause by just stating you are open for discussion. Maybe probably their budget is much higher or slightly lower than yours. So I just recommend give a figure which you expect to be paid, but don't give a stipulated range. Just state the figure, say something above this. I hope I've responded to that.
Just to add on that, issues about salary expectation, as an individual or as a profession, you need to have a tag on yourself. Just the way you go to a supermarket and have, you have unga with a label of 200 shillings per kg. The person who can afford that unga is the person who takes it. If you can't take the unga, it means that you'll not take it. So similarly, this happens with employers. If you are a candidate, you have a tag on yourself. Me as Jay, I'm worth 300,000, or me as Jay, I'm worth 20,000. So when you're going for this interview, don't show your desperation by quoting so low. Sometimes underquoting might make the potential employer doubt your qualifications. So always have a tag on yourself. As much as you do research and the market research of the same position, have a tag on yourself. Use that tag to market yourself out there. Then there's another question on talk more about achievement example, each promotion, is achievements, e.g. is promotion as an achievement? Festus, you can respond to
Yes.
that. Is promotion an achievement?
Yeah. Promotion is an achievement because before you are promoted, you must have showed a certain level of competence. So let's say promotion is an achievement. By outlining that I joined this organization as an HR assistant. Then after accomplishing 1, 2, 3, 4 achievements, I was promoted to an human resource officer. So promotion is an achievement.
Just to add on that, achievement is anything that saves the company money or time. Money and time. So if you save money and time in any organization, or just increase the revenues, anything that you do that will increase the revenues, that is an achievement. So if you save money, maybe you've introduced we can talk about introduction of a system that has saved the company, maybe in terms of processing. We can talk about processing maybe claims, or processing salaries, or processing payments to suppliers. If you introduce a system whereby initially the company has been taking 1 month to process payments to suppliers, but it's taking 2 weeks, or it's taking 1 week, that's an achievement. So you've saved the company some time, and you're building loyalty with those clients. So that is an achievement. Anything that saved the company money, time, is an achievement. Promotion as well is an achievement, because as Festus has said, you'll have shown some skills. Then Elizabeth, kindly mute yourself. About Uhuru, about the question that you should ask the panelists, I think we've talked about that. What's the maximum required to answer the question? Tell us about yourself. Felix can respond to the Festus, you can respond to that.
The maximum, I want to talk about the maximum.
Yeah.
But I just highlight on what you should use as your guiding, as your guides to respond to this question. I said first, consider highlighting your recently achieved academic qualification. They are topmost because they have your CV. That is to introduce yourself. That is like introducing yourself professionally. I'm a holder of this. So it shows some professionalism and expertise in that field. Then proceed to your work experience, whereby just highlight about your most recent one, and then measure on your achievements. I recommend you just highlight your 5 topmost achievements. So I feel that's how much you can go for the question, tell us more about yourself. Because I've said earlier, the moment you become too wordy, you'll become irrelevant. So just be articulate, don't be too brief, just be moderate. And that's all. You'll have gotten it right.
Yes,
you,
another
Tim.
question is, what specific answers can you give on achievement? Is it necessarily based on your academics achievements, or achievements on current job position? Kindly expand on this.
Pardon?
What are the specific answers you can give based on achievements? Do you base them on academics, or you base them on the job positions that you've handled?
On achievements, measure on the job positions. You have been practicing for these at this position in a certain organization, measure on the achievements you made, whereby you saved the company some money, you limited the project timeline. Those are some of the things you should measure on. Achievement in terms of practicing work experience, that is.
Another question is, when in an interview, am I allowed to answer their questions and explain more using examples?
It's a very good question. I will recommend that. The moment you cite examples, it gives a sense of genuinity. It shows how legit, to say, how real you are. So I recommend citing examples. to give you a better chance.
Another question is expected salary. Joe, Godfrey, we talked about that. Infinite is asking about, is it selfish when you jump from an average salary to a higher salary? And how do you communicate that? How do you communicate that you can listen and consider the offer? Let's say you feel your current worth. Tony, kindly mute your mic. Let's say you feel your current role is worth more than, and you wouldn't want to be underpaid in the next. That is the reason that for the quote. He's just asking about maybe he's earning 20,000, but he feels that is worth 100,000. How do you go about that?
I'll say it depends. Number one, your expertise, your competence in your profession will also matter. Then the companies you are applying for, we have SMEs, we have the bigger companies. So there's no way you'll be expecting to earn 100,000 salary for a position for a starting company. So I'll recommend you to apply for job opportunities for companies matching your expectations. And again, you work on yourself to be a brand which matches your tag. As you have earlier just talked about salary branding. So it's a matter of working on yourself and take the opportunities, take the chances, the opportunities you meet along your career as you grow. It's a matter of growth. It's impossible maybe to grow overnight. Start from a 10K salary and tomorrow you are earning 100,000. It's kind of not realistic. You have to show some growth, some levels of growth. So be patient with yourself. If you feel you are at that level, look for those opportunities which match your expectations and prove your. Thank you.
And
Thank you, Jay.
Karibu. Sylvia, thanks. Sylvia has just added on the questions you expect. Questions you expect to be the questions that you can ask the panel. You can ask about description of an organizational culture. You can talk about the organizational ask about organizational culture and how your KPIs will be measured in the short run. Bossy, kindly switch off your mic. Frank, switch off your mic. Then thank the panelists for having you. That is okay. The question on when will you be available to start the job? You haven't resigned from your job. Availability. Festus, can you just talk about availability?
Thank you for that question. So the question about availability, one thing I recommend is you be realistic. So if you have already shared to your potential employer that you are currently employed, there is no way you'll just say in the next 1 week, I'll be open, I'll be available for the opportunity, because you have to give a notice to your previous employer. So I recommend this, it depends. If you are currently employed, kindly just be realistic. Just let them know probably in a month's time, I'll be available. I need to go and get myself clean on the other side. So if they need you, that position will be secured for you, and they'll be patient waiting for the next month. Again, also don't show desperateness for job opportunities. There's no way to be interviewed today and say, I'm ready immediately. But though it will depend on how soon someone is needed to fill this position. So it's up to you to do intensive research. So I recommend just be realistic. If you are not engaged, you can say in a week time. If you are engaged somewhere, it will also depend with the agreement with your current employer.
There's another question about how do you answer the question when they ask if you're planning to go back to school?
It's a good question. Thank you for that question. If you asked whether you are planning to go back to school, it will depend. At a personal level, do you feel like you need to go back to school? But I always say this, knowledge is inexhaustive. It's important to keep learning, to keep adding knowledge. So just be sincere, say that you're looking forward to commencing such and such a program. Maybe it cannot be necessarily going for a maybe master's or PhD, but short-term trainings are important. So for every professional, I recommend this. Kindly enroll for short-term trainings. They are very, very crucial in your career. Then if you feel like you need to proceed for the long-term trainings, that is maybe for the master's, PhD, that will be very nice. But an employer will like someone who progressively looks forward to enriching their self with expertise in their area of practice. So if you are not looking forward to furthering your studies, I recommend you maybe reconsider that, because new things are happening every day. The world is dynamic. The professional field, every professional field is dynamic. Everything is new every day. So you need to keep renewing yourself when it comes to academics. Thank you.
Uhuru is asking about what can someone do in a situation where he or she has panicked during the interview, and for those of us who are shy and are not able to good in communication, what can we do to have confidence in? I think for that one, Uhuru, Festus talked about mock interviews, having someone train you and having someone interview you just before the interview, or you can seek services of a professional just to guide you through, like what we do at JCVS. You can talk to Festus or myself. We can guide you in that. If you have not been practicing HR for a while, how do you explain the gap? If you're not been practicing HR for a while now, how do you explain the gap? Gap in the CVs, how do you explain that, Festus?
Thank you. So for a gap in the CVs, I'll say this, it's good to be genuine. So what have you been doing? Why did you have to check this gap? Maybe you ventured into business, as majority have been doing. Maybe you went to further your studies. So just be genuine, because I believe you've been doing something profitable in your life. Just share about what you've been doing, and that will be good for you. Thank you.
Maybe just to add on that, when talking about the gaps, some of the things that create these gaps might be beyond our control. So always, when you're responding to this question, talk about something that you've been doing in relation to the job that you're looking for, so that the potential employer doesn't see that you've lost all the skills while in that gap, or while not engaged. So make sure that you're doing something, whether it's volunteering or whether it's maybe going back to school, or whether it's community work, just to show that you still have the skills in relation to that job and you can perform well given an opportunity. There's a question: how can one respond to deal with pressure and stressful situations?
Thank you.
How to handle pressure and stressful situations?
Can you take that, please?
How to handle pressure and stressful situations? How do you handle pressure? Or
How
do
to
you
handle pressure and stressful maybe work conditions? I recommend visiting a specialist, a psychologist. That will be nice for you. Sharing with your team leader, your supervisor, it will be helpful to you, so that a coded assistance will be given to you. Thank you.
So, what is the appropriate response when an interviewer asks you where you are currently working? How do you respond to this question politely and not reveal where you're currently working?
Pardon, please.
How what is the appropriate response when an interviewer asks you about where you're currently working and you do not want to share the info about your current employer?
It's a tricky one. Can you take that for me, please?
So, no problem. I think for me, I believe that your CV should be up to date while going for this interview, unless you're into this position for less than 3 months that you haven't included on your CV. I basically don't see the reason why you should hide the identity of your current employer, because some of the skills, maybe they might be a competitor, and for a competitor, I've seen most organizations, they'll consider someone from the competitor because they have the skills, or if it's they have a position like sales, they know that you might come along with some of the clients. So I don't see the need why you should hide the identity of an employer from the potential employer as well. How do you respond to salary expectation? You've talked about that. How do you respond to salary expectation as a recent graduate without experience? I think, Betty, for salary expectation for a recent graduate, I think for recent graduates, what you need to show the potential employers that you're more interested in the experience than gaining the much needed practical experience than the salary. So you talk about don't be so much into salary. I've seen fresh graduates, someone who is fresh from school asking for 50,000, whereas someone with 5 years experience earning the same amount. So show the potential employer that you are more interested in the salary, in the experience than the salary. So as a company, for fresh graduates, I feel that you should ask the potential employer on their budget for that position, because most organizations have a budget for the position they are advertised for. So ask for their budget and just make sure that it's something that is reasonable for you, maybe to manage your bills and fair for you to get to the job. But don't concentrate more on the salary for fresh graduates. Why do you want to leave your current employer, and why should we hire you?
Thank you. It's a very good question. And as I earlier shared on the to-do list before going for an interview, research about the industry and the company. One of the genuine reasons, as I can understand, whoever asks this question, you can just share about what you know about the organization. Maybe state that you've been looking forward to be part of this organization because they've been doing 1, 2, 3, 4, which you are interested in. And that will give you a better chance as to answer the question as to why you want them to hire you and leave your current employment. When you know about the organization, you will easily express yourself and show the interest, the desire which has been burning inside you to be part of a team in this organization. So I feel that will one of the best to date your interviewers. Yeah, thank you.
How do you respond to the evaluation question such that the interviewer asks you to give areas of your weaknesses to improve on last evaluation you had? How do you respond to the evaluation question such that the interviewer asks you to give the areas of weakness told to improve on last? How do you respond to the evaluation question such that the interviewer asks you? I think I understand this question is basically talking about how you handle your weaknesses. Festus, we've lost you. Are you there? So how do you handle your weakness? Evelyn Karanja, about handling weaknesses. We all have weaknesses in each, at least in 1 or 2 areas that are related to the job that we've applied for, or the position that we are being interviewed for. So when you have any weakness that you prepared to present during an interview, or that was there during your previous evaluation, always make sure that there's a way that you explain to the potential employer on how you handling your weakness. Maybe you're someone who is in accounting and the company introduced a new system, or the company has been using a system that you don't understand, you can talk about going back to using YouTube to understand that, or taking someone, having someone coach you on how to use the system so that you can enhance your skills in that area. How long should you stay in a certain workplace? What's the ideal time? At Mlela Muya, there's no ideal time to stay in any specific job, but for jobs that are taking less than 1 year in a position might paint you as a job hopper. So make sure at least we prefer one year plus. Yeah, that is okay for you to move to the next position, to the next employer if you really need to move. Then the question of availability, is it okay to say that you're available immediately because your leave days will cover the notice period? Margaret, I don't think that will be okay for you to respond and talk about your leave days unless they have really pushed you. And as Festus said, if your company really needs you, they'll have to wait for that. They'll have to wait for that period of 1 month notice or 2 weeks notice. So always ensure that your response to this is based on what is in your contract, the separation clause in your contract. Are you should you separate after 1 month notice, or should you separate after 2 weeks notice? Always make sure that you stick to what is in your contract. Unless otherwise stated by the panel, make sure that you stick to what is in your contract. Festus, are you back?
Yes, sorry for the interruption. I'm back.
Sorry. I was asked a question which I failed to answer it. Well, I lost the confidence the whole interview. Kindly advise on this. He's talking about confidence, eh?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you for the question. So concerning this, I just refer to what I've shared about. Number one, practice. Always do an interview setup with the friend of yours or a family member. Practice. Assume that you are at an interview, then practice. The other thing, consider getting these services from consultancies, HR consultancies, whereby you'll get interview coaching, and this will make you good to go. The other thing, there's a lot of content online, Google. So you can also just search on YouTube. Mostly asked interview questions, because mostly you tend because you don't have the know-how of how to go about answering these questions. So what I generally recommend is get yourself a coach, do practicals with your friends, and then intensively research. That will help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. How does one handle a case where one has experience but does not have the academic background to back it up? I think that one at Kunka, I'll respond. Nowadays, what is happening in the job market? The job market is flooded, and sometimes we tend not all professionals are being absorbed in the area of study. You'll find someone who's done accounting doing customer service work, or someone who's done accounting doing sales, someone who's done HR doing admin work. What I'll advise is that when you get yourself in a position that you've not is not in your area of study, always make sure that you, at least, there are so many courses even online, make sure get a course for that role in that field. You're doing accounting, you're doing sales, but you've done accounting, go online. Alison is offering courses in sales. Take up a course in sales so that you, when in an interview, you can back it up. You can back that up with that experience. Even though some of the organization will look at the experience rather than the background, academic background, but always make sure that you are not 50-50. Make sure that you prove yourself in an interview, both academically and experience-wise. Then we have another question. Personally, I have hid my current employer in LinkedIn because I left the previous job we disputed. It came to my shock that my contract had 2 disputing pages, one saying that it was 1 month notice and the other I had to start my next, and the other, I personally hid my current employer in LinkedIn because as I left my previous job, we disputed, and it came to my shock that my contract had 2 disputing pages, one saying 1 month notice and the other 2 month notice. I had to start the next job in 1 month. So I feel scared disclosing in fear of the previous employer ruining my employment opportunity. I think here, if you have the contract is what will fight for you in such a scenario. Use your contract. Don't fear about this. Use your contract to stand in for you to your current employer if need be. If there's such an instant comes up, use your contract to do that. But always make sure that as you receive this contract when you're getting employed, make sure that you go through the contract well and understand it before you sign it. Is it advisable to start afresh, i.e. begin internship and work towards concentrating on what I studied? I've been doing a job not in my line with my studies, or how best can one align their career path? About career path alignment, what I always advise is that when you are outside your career for more than 2 years, I think you should just concentrate on what you're doing what you've been doing for the last 2 years. Because if you go more than 2 years, for example, I've done HR, I'm working in sales. In 2 years, I'll be earning around 50,000. And for entry level in HR, I'll start earning with 20,000. So money being involved here for 2 years, if you are outside your career for 2 years, I think you should make up your mind and concentrate, or unless you're willing to go back and start afresh with a lower salary, you should just concentrate on where you are in and maybe take a course in that area so that you can improve on your skills. What is the best, what have been your most positive and negative management experiences? What has been your most positive and negative management experiences? I think here they're asking about challenges. And when they talk about negative, they're talking about the challenges that you're facing as a manager in management. I think some of the challenges that a manager can face, maybe is you can face challenges based on a lack of support, maybe from the management, and lack of systems to enable you as a manager achieve your departmental goals. On the positives, you can talk about support from the management. You just talk about the opposite of what you talked about in the first place. Support from the management and availability of systems to enable you as a manager achieve your goals as a department as well. So thank you so much for the session. It's been great help. Thanks. Welcome. Congratulations, friends. Thank you. It's okay to request for an interview, Is it okay to request for an interview, Richelle, mostly when interview falls on the same day? Any attempts to reschedule an interview should be communicated in time so that your potential employer can also plan in advance. Most of the organization will hire interviewers to come and interview on that day and then go. So in such instances, it will be hard for you to, it will be very hard for you to, it will be very hard for you to reschedule the interview. So make sure you communicate prior and you can give a valid reason on why you want the interview rescheduled, that the potential employer can understand that. How do you respond to a potential employer disputing all your referees to be known to you and not be able to give honest review of you? At Maxwini, we prefer at least you have 2 professional referees. By professional referees, I mean referees that mostly will need people who are immediate supervisors so that they can give an honest opinion about you. If you give people who are not professional referees, that might bring an issue. So we prefer professional referees because they are in a position to write recommendations if need be. Kindly do training on CV writing next time. We did training on CV. We talked about CVs last weekend. And next weekend, we're talking about something else as well. I think that was the last question. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending this session. We at JCVs are so much thankful to you. We appreciate so much for you joining us. This being July being a HR month, we decided that we'll be all the Saturdays from 8 to 9 p.m. we'll be having sessions. We've talked about CVs last weekend. Today we've talked about interview preparation. Next weekend we'll be talking about how to be a star performer, how to position yourself as a star performer. So all the weekend, the remaining 3 weekends, we'll still be talking about things related to job search. We thank you so much for the continued support, and we look forward to more engagements in future. So sometimes supervisors won't be open to leaving, they might compromise. At Maxwini, I think if you have several supervisors in an organization, at least there's someone that will want you to grow professionally. They might support your decision to leave the organization. So make sure that you talk to your supervisors, talk to someone who can recommend you, and make sure that you are in terms with him. You can even try to use another line, a different line with a friend, so that you can call this. You can just call him just to see if what he'll talk about you. Even if it's not an interview, you can do a mock background check with him. At Leonard, we closing the session. For more questions, we'll do next time. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed night. And to our Muslim brothers, Eid Mubarak. Great weekend ahead, team.
Thank you, sir.
Bye,
you
everyone.
Too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Niaje?
Hello. Hello. Can you get it? This link next week, mapema.
Festus.
Yes.
Niaje?
Sana.
That was awesome, Bana.
Thank you.
So happy.
Yeah.
Mtoka.
Yes.
Congratulations on your new job.